Hello and welcome to the 4th episode of the Squad Review series, and within this one I'll be giving each person around 3 to 4 tips to make sure they get enough information to work on until maybe a future squad review if they wanted another one further down the line. For anyone else who hasn't actually seen these squad reviews before, this is where I give you my 5 years worth of experience of playing the game and advising you on what you should do next depending on what you want to improve in. So if you like what you see here today and you want your Hustle Castle squad to be reviewed, then make sure to leave your in-game ID in the comments and what area of the game you want to improve on. It doesn't matter if you want to do better in your arenas, clan bosses or do better in your gem base, as long as you put both in the comments then you could be featured in the next video, but make sure you do answer both, otherwise I won't be able to give you advice. So let's now move on to the first person of the night, and that'll be this person here, and this player wants help with their gem base. I've also placed this player at the start of the video because the other two are more towards PvPs and arenas, which most of you are probably more interested in, but this one will still help out any players that don't complete their gem base, especially at Throne Room 8. The first thing I would normally ask people is what spells do they use and are they at their max level, but because I can't see what level your spells are or what you use, I'll just give you some general advice. For gem base, I've always found it very useful to be using the Cliff's Totem, and this should be used just before you notice your fighters start to die at certain rounds, and that might sound a bit confusing, but it will be different for everybody. You might get to the round 12 before you start losing fighters, it could even be round 8 if you don't have very good sustain, which means I can't say an exact figure of which is right for you, but what I will say as a safe method is to start using it around 7 and onwards, and if you think that is too early then you can just increase the rounds before you start to use it again. And after each Throne Room level up, make sure that your magic lab and spells are at their max level for the given Throne Room level. The good news for your squad, I can see you have items for good sustainability, which is good, but I have noticed your fighter called M2 has a low level ring and amulet compared to their actual level, and with that in mind you can either wait for an event to come around or check out the portal when it gets opened up again and see what's going to be available for you out of the two. The next thing I would suggest to work on is doing your lighthouse for higher stats. Even though I can't see if you've been working on them, it's most likely you haven't maxed out every fighter, so increasing their health, armor and magic armor as the main 3 will be benefiting you greatly in your gem base in staying alive. And to do with staying alive, I can see your fighters could do with a little help with adding some gems. You always want to make sure that every fighter has at least their health, armor and magic armor gems, and that can be using blue gems or above. For most people, blues won't seem that great, but especially at Throne Room 8 this can still make a big difference to your team, so I'll try and add those to where you can and always focus on upgrading them to purples when you get the time. The last thing I mention is to work on your totems. Ideally you want them to be level 30 for their abilities, so if you know you're going to be staying at Throne Room 8 for some time, I would try and level these up once you've done all your goes on the gem bay and then move on to the arena. Now let's move on to the second person, and this person has been a great player in my clan for a long time now, and out of the 4 episodes this is the first time I'm actually reviewing one of my clan members, so let's see what they want to improve in. My in-game nickname is Iceman and I want to improve in PvPs. So with PvPs, you'll want to be able to burst your enemies down as quickly as possible, which means we'll be looking mainly at improving your team's overall damage, and with that in mind, let's go have a look at your squad. Firstly, what I would do is remove the Rune of Flame from your fighter called Liam and move it over to your Dragonborn. Yes, the Dragonborn ring right now is fairly good, and you do have a lot of legendary dodge gems on it right now, but I would actually rate the newest rune in the Rune of Flame to be a much better attachment for PvPs, with the higher amount of team burst that it can provide. And another thing for your Dragonborn, which again is a fairly easy swap, and that'll be moving your Shadowfire's totem to your Dragonborn. The reason you want to do this is because the Dragonborn is very good at fighting a whole team, whereas the Shadow Fighter is normally only ideal at taking out the backline of archers, and doing this swap will improve your battles, especially for PvPs. Also, looking at your hero, and there are a few things I'd recommend for you to focus on, and the first thing would be to upgrade your Ace Up the Sleeve and replace it for your Mithril Shackles. The Mithril Shackles are going to be good for doing your gem base, dungeons and clan wars, but not always ideal for PvPs. The Ace Up the Sleeve can have a really big impact on your squad once it's leveled up to around level 5 and onwards. Other than that, as a general thing, you'll want to improve your Dragonborn as best you can, because as of right now, they'll be the biggest game changer for your squad. So I'd look to upgrade the following 3 things as a priority. Firstly would be Sniper for their extra damage, secondly would be Vampiric Arrows to keep him alive longer, and thirdly would be Pathfinder's Endurance, and that's because it never really hurts to have more max health on any type of fighter. And because you're in my clan, I'll actually give you one more bit of advice, and this one will be more specific to you. I would look at rebuilding the ancient items you have on your fighters that you want to be the best in your squad. For example, on your Shadow Fighter's armor's ability, based on its stats it shows that it could be nearly 69% more damage per second if it's at its max value. And when I say rebuilding, I do mean destroy your current item and build it back into an ancient set. But don't worry, as you break down an item you will get some essences back, so just make sure you got enough to actually make that total so you can make it straight away without wasting any time. Doing this will always improve your item until you get past the 90% mark out of the total range, and from there it could be hit or miss based on what some people have been saying, but always just before you do rebuild, make sure you take a screenshot because it's not always the biggest of improvements, and sometimes you might not even believe it did a change, but I promise you it always will. So I really hope you found this useful, and I would have given you more advice, but I didn't want to overwhelm you, and you can always ask again in the future if you want to be reviewed again, but I don't cover people twice in a row, so it will take a little while, but at least it'll give you some time to work on these few things. As for anyone else, if you have put your comment down below and you want your squad to be reviewed, make sure you do get subscribed if you haven't already so you don't miss out on when your squad does get reviewed. Moving on to the last person of the video, and that'll be this person here. They put, I would like some help with my squad, arena and other PvP aspects, as I feel my squad isn't very strong or competitive. Now I can see a lot of people want to do better in PvPs or arenas, so these tips will go for everyone and just try to fit them into your squad where you can. And these tips will be mainly focused around really high power squads just like this one, so do keep this in mind. As I've mentioned before, PvPs are all about burst, and from what I can tell, you have a few rings which have the potential altogether to really change the fight in your favour, and luckily because they're rings, this shouldn't be too hard for you to do, and ideally I'd focus on them in this order. Firstly, the ring I would break down and rebuild would be your Legionnaires. This ring has the potential to do an extra 52% more damage to every enemy it hits, which will be a huge amount in any fight that you come across, and will be the biggest difference out of the three I mentioned. The next ring I would do would be the Bastions. This ring could deal an additional 56% more damage to its initial hit, and the same amount to setting them on fire, giving you a huge boost of damage to a single enemy. And lastly would be the Paladin's ring. This can deal an extra 43% on what it can do right now, and since this is pure damage, there's no way an enemy would be able to avoid it, or at least reduce the damage that they could take from it. Now I know all of these things to rebuild will take some time, and I am mentioning the maximums of what they can be over time, but if you could increase all three of these, your PvP fights will easily go more in your favour. The next thing you may have seen as I was showing you the rings, there's an obvious point of fake power which isn't going to be helping your situation. For example, the first ring is on your Paladin. Now your Paladin won't be able to use these 3 legendary magic damage gems, but it will increase your fighter's power and overall your squad power. So it depends on how much you like looking at fully legendary gemmed gear, but taking them off will help you find more balanced opponents in the arena, well at least to Hustle Castle standards. The other ring out of the two will be on your Priest, and this person has 2 legendary damage gems on it, so again taking those off will take off that fake power and again help you overall. There is another drastic way of losing total squad power, but it can be really effective for your arenas, and that's to take off any crit gems that are on your mages, as they don't hit crits very often and don't really impact your match, especially as much as spell power abilities. But again, that is a drastic step, and those crit gems can still help you in clan wars, clan bosses and pretty much everywhere else, but taking them off will improve your arenas, so it's kind of a double-edged sword with that one. To do with your hero though, I can see your stats are a touch low, especially for someone of your level, so I'd recommend spending some time here in upgrading the health and damage talents for the respective classes of your fighters. And for ease they'll be on screen right now so you can see what I mean, but I would also recommend aiming for these additional talents on top of these to make sure that your fighters are well rounded and ready for every occasion. And also make sure to level up these stats at least 3 times to start noticing a difference, but any more than that will always be a benefit. The last but very crucial thing for us to cover, and this goes for everyone else as well, and that's to have a look at your alliances. There are some really good ones out there, but in your case, I can see you're using the default bombers, which isn't terrible, but there are some much better ones out there. So what I've done is do some research on your case in particular, and come up with some very good options that are very close to being done. But if you can get this first one active, you're really going to notice a difference from the get-go, and that will be the Undercover of Night. And with this one, you're only missing the Priest talent, but once you have this Priest talent and the other 3 that are required that are already in your barracks, you'll be able to use this alliance, which has always caused me problems for me in the past, so you can expect this to work really well for yourself. Expedition Party would be the second choice for your instance, because again you're only missing the Sentry talent to get this one active. But with that in mind, you're also only missing the Sentry talent to make the Call to Clash active as well, so this gives you 2 options of which one you would prefer. And lastly, you could go for not a simple samurai, but that is missing the warlock talent, so again this will depend highly on how desperately you would want this alliance. Out of these 4 alliances that you are really close to, I know the Undercover of Night will give you the biggest bonuses in winning your PvP matches. Right, so that's everything here for today, and there has been a lot of information in this one. Again, if you want to be involved in the next squad review, then you know what to do there. But if you also have any questions you wanted to ask me, then make sure you head to this video here so it's all in one place, and make sure to like other people's comments that you want me to talk about as well.